And we're live.
Hello.
Hello.
We're finally back.
I always wanted to play that. You know that clip where what's that guy's name? Bill O'Reilly. He's like, "We're going live. We're going live. God damn it!"
By the way, we were just talking for 5 minutes, but we did not mention this. Did you watch any of the SNL 50th anniversary?
Parts of it, I was in and out of consciousness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of it was very good. Some of it was really bad. But
I
the Adam Sandler song was, I thought, the highlight for me.
That was good.
Yeah, it was good.
I'll have to watch it tonight. I'll watch it after we do our.
But we have other videos to watch today. We've never finished watching part 2 of the Captain Nappy video.
This is part 2 of the Charles Nappy world record fluke catching video. We were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago, but I got sick. I had the flu. And
I got sick first.
You got sick first. So we were both really sick. But let's get some. We've got 14 people on now. So get your comments, questions, whatever you have over in the chat. We'll be sure to answer it. What do we have here? Let's see. Show. Oop, I don't want to show that. How do we get the chat in the comments here? All right. I don't think we have any comments. So let's start the video, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Let me get over to.
So part 1 is available on both our channels if you want to see the first half of the video.
Yeah. So this is part 2. You can go back on either channel and watch the first part. Here we go.
Mr. Hairmore will.
I can hear it. Oh, there it is.
Puncture the fish's spine, and he won't be able to swim.
I went back a little bit just so we could.
Yep.
Whoa! Yeah, he was out of the water for a while. He'll come around in a little while.
And just to catch everyone up, he's demonstrating what the live lining the snapper looks like. And allegedly, right, that's how he got his world record.
Yes, that's how he caught the world record. Was on one of his fluke rigs, which we're looking at here with a.
Okay, he's going nice now. He's going nice now, and that's the way he'll be swimming in front of your fluke. The big fluke on the bottom. Looks like he's chasing that little sand eel. Just about got it. Oh, there he goes. That's the right way to hook a fish. Look how natural that looks. That fooled the biggest fluke ever caught in the world on rod and reel. And I'm sure you can see why. Those hooks are not bothering him at all. Just a little weight, but look at him go.
No, not bothering him, Hal.
I would think he'd beg to differ, meaning the snapper, that they're not bothering him.
Now there's zillions of fluke rigs on the market. My packages say, every package says, American-made leader. Now, it's not just on there to say it's made in the USA, hooray for me. It's not on there for that. Because if I could get away with using imported leader, like everyone else does, a little cheaper, it'd be okay, but it doesn't catch the fish. This is American-made leader. Would you hold this? This is imported leader.
Imported, and he's talking about the fluorocarbon leader material from Japan.
Now you have the American leader. Would you take a strand out?
Or China.
And crumple it up the way I'm going to do with this imported stuff. And while he's doing that, I don't know if you can get that in there, Marty, but on the bottom of each package of my rig, it shows you what the imported leader does and what the American leader does. It presents the bait naturally. With this one, if you're fishing in the rips, which is probably one of my favorite spots, the current and tide is so strong, it twists it and knots up, and it doesn't present the bait right. And you won't catch half as many fish. Do a good job on that. Like this one is a good job. Now, this is the imported leader. This is what I have to do with my leader to straighten it. Hold this up, please. Okay. That's a memory. You see the difference? That's a memory. This is what happens to this in the strong tides and the strong currents and the rips that produce 90% of the fluke. And this is the American leader. So it's not just on there for Hooray USA. And
so a valid point, JT. Not necessarily
packages,
on the maybe we just pause it for a second. Not necessarily on the
inside of every
on where the leader is made, but just on presentation. And you know, I know it's striped bass, not to segue to a different species, but it's very easy. Like he's saying, we fish the rips a lot. It's very easy to get that leader material all crumpled and twisted, and boy, oh boy, you're not going to catch fish when that happens. It's going to wind up wrapping around itself. It's not going to look right. So it's a valid point, and not just for Fluke. That leader material should be nice and smooth.
Yeah, and honestly, the more expensive fluorocarbon you buy, the better it's going to perform. Nowadays, I think the Japanese fluorocarbon is probably the best. Seagar is a good one, but then you get into like Sunline. There's some other really more expensive brands out there that have better performing fluorocarbon.
Right. Okay.
But you use what you can afford, right?
Great package for the single hook and the double hook. And here's a tournament card. You just fill it out and win prizes like this. This is the prizes we gave away this year. 66 prizes. Doesn't cost a thing. With Penn reels and Blakely rods, lightning rods, and line, and trophies. And all just for fun, for going fishing. This nice Penn reel goes with this rod. And we gave 16 of these away and 50 prizes to the third, fourth, and whatever we had winners. Nice little outfit for flounders and fluke.
How big is your record?
This record here, this one is 9.5 pounds. I caught it on a 4-pound test line in 70 feet of water on the south side of Montauk. And I was using trilene line, and that's what I got with it.
That was big
Good
game.
line, and it pays well too.
This is when big game first came out.
You try to set the hook right away as soon as you put something on there. How do you use it?
Oh, good. When you're fishing with light line, you can't set the hook at all. And when you're fishing with any kind of line, the most common mistake people make is not giving the fish enough time. Fluke, you got to give a lot of time to. They like to grab the fish or the bait and hang on, swim with it for a while. I seen my friend Percy make a lift. He drives me nuts. I can't even look at him. He makes a lift, and you see the fish biting, and he just leaves it there. It seems like an eternity, but he catches the fish. But I can't watch him. I can't do it that long. When I lift and feel a fish, I just hang out for a while and let him swim with the bait, and then I try and let it back easy so he don't feel no drop back like that. He'll know it's a phony. If it's a big fish, believe me, he'll know
it's a phony.
And drop it and won't touch it again. You got to try and leave it back with the same tension he's got on it until you hit the bottom. Then you could thumb it out, let about 10 feet out, and when it's starting to come taut, if you still feel him biting, then you could hook him any way you want. You got him. But you
So
have
clearly
to
that's
drop
for
back
bigger
every time.
baits.
Always.
Snappers and
Biggest mistake
larger
people
strips. Because I don't know if you want to wait if you have a rub on, a gulp on.
Try and hook
Yeah.
the fish right away.
But you're dropping back and you're not worrying about the fluke feeling the sinker. You just don't want to feel the tension from the pole.
I want to feel everything from the minute it goes because I can't dead stick or nothing. And sometimes you catch a lot of fish doing that. I just can't do that. It's not in me. I gotta have the rod and reel in my hands and feel it. Then I know I caught him when I catch him.
How do you set the drag? How do you know?
Accordingly. I set the drag very, very loose, almost as loose as I can make it. You could always tighten it, but sometimes, most of the time, it's too late to loosen it. So I make the drag almost like it's in free spool. So it comes off the reel like that. See, that's in lock. And it's so smooth, this Penn reel. They got that new drag system. They are great. 70 foot of water. I wouldn't use anything else.
On that light line, how often do you change it?
Every time I catch a fish.
Won't that, especially like 2 and 4 pound test breakdown quickly in sunlight?
Probably. I really don't know about that. With the new techniques they got, especially Berkeley, they got this laser lights and all that. They're really doing wonders with line. That big game line they come out with, this here, I probably have enough for all of you here. We field tested this 2 years ago when the first come out. We fished on a Ranger wreck in 40 fathoms out of Montauk with a 53-foot boat. And we anchored the boat with 50-pound test line. We got hung up in a wreck and we couldn't break the line. We anchored the boat with it. It's really good stuff.
How do you keep it from wrapping it around?
Yeah.
Ranger rack.
Yeah. The imported lead is a big thing, which I showed before. Spinning reels are a big thing. But the most important and the most common mistake everybody makes about the wrapping of the hook around the line is you fish with pretty big baits when you're fluke fishing. Even if you're using just a big piece of squid and a big killie. The sinker, you could have a 6-ounce sinker. And the bait could be 12 ounces. But when you drop your line in the water, the sinker's going to go down, the bait's going to float. And if you drop it down fast, especially with the imported leaders, you're out of luck. That's going to twist around
if
there.
you've ever striped
you'll be
bass
down at the
fish,
bottom, you won't even know it.
Three-way bucktails
People
with
be
heavy
catching
weights, you
fish
know,
around
to
you,
bring it down nice
won't
and
know
easy.
it.
Otherwise, it's going to wrap like
and
you're
even
saying.
when you pull it up and see it, you won't know it. You won't know if it happened on the way up or on the way down. But that's when it happens, on the way down. Now that we get the tackle straightened out, we have to know where to go to find the fish. So like I mentioned before, the rips, one of my favorite places. 90% of the time I fish the rips. Even if it's not a major rip. Sometimes I'll have rips off by Gardener's Island or somewhere. You always catch big fish. But here's how we find the rip.
I love this.
The water is smooth, and then it starts cresting. Then it gets smooth again. This would be the rip, all white water here. And what causes that rip, we'll take some simple rips like the Midway rips and by Great Eastern and the Pollock rip in Montauk. They have reef-like edges on the bottom, like this. It would read on your graph. And the tide runs so strong against this, where it's cross tide. This is the ocean meeting the sound, where this tide is just about changing, and this tide is running hard. It meets so hard against this that it causes turbulence all around here. You got like 60 foot of water, all of a sudden rushing up into 20 foot and coming over that top. And now this is where all the bait fish get caught, in the turbulence. They all get caught in here, the bait fish, because they swim against the current, and if they're swimming this way, they get up to here, And this rip is so hard and the turbulence is so great, they just get caught and spin around. And the fluke lay, nice size fluke. I've caught fluke up to 7, 8 pounds in a rip. And a friend of mine got a 17-pounder there. But
we don't fish the
for
rips
now, we're fishing for medium-sized
There's a couple
fish.
rips. I
Trophy fish comes, like if you started here at the top of the tide, you'd have to fish 4 hours. You got about a half-hour slack. And then you have to fish 4 hours while the tide is running strong. Only to here and to here. Because you'll go up here and you throw a marker buoy right where you hit the fish. But you're not going to hit the fish here. You start up here because if you're fishing with big baits especially, you have to let your line down slow. Otherwise, the line will come up and twist around your main line and you'll never get a fish.
Now we're using GPS
So
waypoints instead of
you
buoys.
start to drift here and start letting your line out slow. By the time you get with this fast current, by the time your line gets to the bottom, you'll be right here where the fish are feeding. And then by the time you get here, you throw the second buoy out, because when you drift back here, even though there's really big fish back here, there's really big fluke laying back here, but you won't catch them then. Because in all of that 4 hours, of that really roaring tide, the bait fish are all here. The 4, 5, and 6 pound fish are chewing them up to all the bait fish. The bits and pieces and halves of them are coming back with the current, and the big fish just lay there and eat all they want for them. While the little fish, they won't get mixed up in this frenzied feeding. They're too smart and too lazy. And then, after you got your marker buoy down, you start to drift here, you stop here, lines up right away, you come back to the first buoy, because in that tide, if you go 10 feet past here, or 10 feet past there on each drift, you'll miss like 2.5 hours of fishing time in the course of the 4 hours. Now, after the 4 hours, the white water disappears. The rip is stopping now because the tide's really slowed down immensely. Forget it. There's no more turbulence here. The fish could swim. The little bait fish could swim. The fluke that are here feeding, there's nothing really for them to get excited about anymore. All the bait fish have stopped being twisted and turned in this turbulence where they can catch them easy. And the fishing gets really slow there. But then back here, you use big baits now. Fluke belly baits, like with a split tail, that would be your hook. And snappers, live snappers or live mackerel. You drift here now, you drift back here, because the big fish is still there. They never get mixed up in this. And for 1 hour, you got a chance to get in a trophy fish that you could put on the wall. And that's where they are. You only got an hour to catch them, though. And I think that's about completes about the rips, the principle of it. And you catch fish on every rip. I fished in rips in Robert Moses. I've never been there in my life. And I caught nice fluke in a lot of them. Once you fish one rip, anywhere you go, you can fish the rip the same way, any rip you come to. Okay. That's it for the rips.
Oh, I can't. This part.
Now, this seminar is
Dry
about
paper
catching
towel
big
on the
fish,
board.
so when we catch big fish, we lose a lot of tackle because they hang out in the rocks, rocky bottoms. They hang out in the rocks and they bury themselves in the gravel. There's usually a lot of gravel and kelp around rocks, and all you see, if you're down swimming under the water, is a couple of eyes and the outline of the fin. You don't see anything else. The fish is buried underneath there. He's laying in the rocks. The bait fish come up swimming against the current over the rocks. This guy got no disturbance at all on him. The water flow is coming over the top of his head. His eyes are looking out. He sees the bait fish come over even if there's 5 of them. One flick of his tail, and he's got him.
It's my understanding that fish, just like seagulls, like the seagull will always face into the wind to find out what kind of smells he can pick up where there's food. Fish in the same way face into the current so as to pick up anything that the current brings to them.
Yeah, they do unless they're hiding under the rocks. Did you ever have the tropical fish at home? Well, you have tropical fish, anybody that has them, and have aerators in the tank, you'll see the fish hanging around the aerator. They love the bubbles and oxygen going through their gills. But predator fish, usually Jack Dempsey's and Oscars and fish like that, they hide in the rocks. Facing this way or that way, doesn't matter. And when a prey comes by, boom, they got him. And a fluke is a predator fish. So when you fish in the rocks, to avoid losing a lot of tackle, that's the main problem. You have to jig it almost like a flounder when you're flounder fishing. And when you feel it coming up, you can feel it. You got to reel up a little slack. Then you lift high till you come down again. Then you jig it till you come over here. And that's where the fish are. The big fish stay in the rocks. Ledges, reefs, wrecks,
Rips.
and rips. You'll see the white water's really subsided a lot on this rip, but you can still see the edge very, very plain. And that would be a drop-off there at the smooth part of the rip. You can still see the white water pretty good. We got about an hour and a half of tide left here. But this is what a rip looks like. This is what you look for. Now, we're in a Great South Bay here. Somewhere around Massapequa Cove, I would imagine. And look at how nice this rip stands out. And this is where, like I told you, the turbulence is strong and the bait fish get caught. And we catch pretty nice fluke here in the rip. Now, I've never fished this particular rip, but like I said before, all the rips produce. There might be a certain area of them, like one end of it, or the point in the middle of it, or maybe the other end of the rip. You have to try every part of the rip that you can, and then we put the buoys in when we get the fish, and we'll show you what that's all about later. Now we're at the edge of the rip. Just about. The edge is in there. You can see it plain, even though it's subsiding a lot. We got about an hour left of the tide, and this is prime time in the tide anyway to catch big fish. So what we do is throw a marker buoy in there. We got 10 feet extra line on there. It'll hit the bottom, and then there's 10 extra feet. So for the pull of the tide, the marker won't go on the bottom. And you should always paint them black or yellow. You notice how it stands out? A white one, especially when the rip is working good in the
Crazy
white
to think you made the point earlier. Pre-electronics, like advanced electronics, like GPS,
Okay,
what you had
now
to
we're
do
gonna
to figure
fish
out where to start and
and drift
stop.
along our marker and hit the edge of the rip. To the other edge of it, there's 2 edges now. And when the bites stop, we'll throw the other marker in and we'll have a direct line on drifting from the start
You know where this is?
to the end
said Massapequa in
without
the
wasting
Great
any
South
valuable
Bay.
fishing time. Okay, now we're
I
coming
think that's
to the
what
end
he
of
said
the rip.
earlier. I don't know
You
if
can
it's
see
the
the
same
edge
spot.
here, plain as
Have you
day,
ever
even though
fished
the
there?
tide subsided a lot, quite a bit. You can still see
Way
the edge
west
of the
of
rip
us.
really good. You don't have to look for the white water. You can still see the rip. So we'll be out of this rip soon, and we're going to throw our other marker. Like I said before, we can't waste valuable time, and we could actually, there's another rip beyond this. We could actually drift into that, but we're going to work this rip. So we save precious fishing time in this hour. Okay, now I showed you how to make the buoys. Very simple. Chlorox bottle, painted black or yellow so it stands out for you. Some sinkers attached to it. 10 feet of extra line. This is 50-pound monofilament. We used to do it with rope, but the rope has such resistance in the tide that it pulls the buoy down into the water a lot, even with the 10 feet extra slack. So this will be the end of our drift. We'll show you the other buoy. And you can see the edge of the other rip starting there. So what we're going to do now is make another drift back between our buoys. That'll be your drift pattern. See the two buoys in line? And you won't waste any time. There's one at this edge of the rip and one at the end of the rip. And that's where the fish are feeding. So get to the last buoy, start fishing here. By the time you let your baits out slow the way I said, you'll be right at the edge of the rip with your baits. As you can see, you can judge it from the distance of the smooth water to the rip. And we got the straight line, right in line. We drip right through the rip to the other edge and catch the whole area where they're feeding. Now, of course, we don't want to clutter up this whole rip with buoys. So if you see someone fishing with buoy markers, just use the buddy system and fish right on his markers. Or let him fish on your markers. Either way.
Let him fish on your markers, Hulk. Stay off my markers.
Very important. That's where the fight comes in when you're fluke fishing, when you get the fish to the top of the water. So many people got small nets. So many people got white nets. So many people don't have any nets, which happened to me once. I know I'm talking from experience. It's not something I heard. I had a fluke on at Breezy Point in a rip a lot of years ago. And it looked like the size of a hood of a car to me, and I had no net, and I couldn't get him in a boat. And it was in June. I didn't expect a big fish. But anyway, netting a fish. A fluke, when you hook a fluke, it's like being stuck in the bottom, really a big fluke. And you're really not sure until you start getting them off the bottom and you feel them pumping. Then it gives you a nice fight. Like the big one ran back down to the bottom about 4 times with me. But when you get him up to the top and he sees the boat, and no matter how tired you think he is, if you hit him in the tail with your net, with your gaff, with anything, you can kiss him goodbye. They get so powerful and they're so strong that all the suction they use to stay on the bottom, they use to go back down there. And they usually break your line. 40 and 50-pound test line, too. So never do that. That's the first rule. Never net him from the tail. Never reach out with the net like that. So the rim of the net, even if you got a green mesh net, which you should have it, don't scare the fish. When they see the aluminum rim, they're going to go crazy and you're going to lose them. The right way to do it is make the angler turn the fish around and swim them into the net. That's the only way, the right way to net a fluke. Here's a prime example of how trophy fish are lost at the boat. Tail face with the net. Goodbye, trophy fish. As you can see, the 10-pound fluke is gone, but the 2-ounce sinker is still there. Is the same person going to net a fish tail faced again? Look at this. 2 trophy fish gone, back to the bottom. I bet you he never does that again. This is reaching out too far. With the rim of the net at the eye level of the fish, watch this. Forget it. Another trophy fish gone. Now you'll see the proper way to net the fish. The net, you'll notice, is way down below the eye level of the fish. Swim the fish into the net, swoop him up, and he's in the boat. Here's another way, the proper way. Notice the net going down deep under the eye level of the fish. There we go, in the boat. Like I mentioned before, I got a $1,000 bonus from Berkeley Trilene just because I used one of their rods when I caught my last world record, a 9.5-pound Fluke on 4-pound test line. I got $1,000 for using a Berkeley lightning rod as a bonus. Now, this is my annual Fluke tournament. Berkeley is one of the major sponsors in it, and we give away lightning rods as prizes. So you could not only win a rod, you could go out and catch a fish that'll put you in a record book and get a $1,000 bonus also. And we have Penn reels, reliable gaff, Plano tackle boxes, $500 gift certificate from Fish Unlimited Taxidermy, and Nappy Fluke rigs. It's a nice tournament. It's free with the purchase of one of my rigs. Good luck and good fishing.
That was back when the limit was 10 apiece. Good stuff, huh?
Yeah. 1988. There's the year
1988
that they made it. And I see Philly Man Pete is asking, he broken his own world record. No, he has the all tackle world record at 22 plus pounds, and then he broke the 4-pound test line record at 9.5 pounds. So the IGFA recognizes not only all tackle, meaning rod and reel, but any size line, but also specific line classes. So you can have the all tackle record with a 30-pound line, but somebody else can catch a lighter fish and still set a world record for 10-pound line, if that makes sense. Yeah, he's definitely a believer in big baits.
Big baits, big fish.
But you know what? A lot of what he said really resonates with me from a striper perspective. He literally just described how we fish the rips, JT, by the race, by the gut. Even a little bit by Montauk if you fish the point and you fish some of the rips there. And by the way, every year we hear about big Fluke being caught off those rips in Montauk.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned Great Eastern and some of them. That's an area we really, for whatever reason, don't focus a lot of attention on. But in the fall, we do sometimes. They seem to be very prevalent there in the fall. Maybe it's because there's more bait there in the fall. I don't know. But a lot of what he said really resonates with me more for stripers than Fluke. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, and I know this is maybe an area you and I will disagree a little. But I think much like we don't have to throw marker buoys anymore with the advancements in technology, I think the advancements now with artificial baits, I still think, right, it'll work, but I think it's easier with the artificial baits. My opinion only. Hard to disagree with the fact that he has the world record. But remember, he caught it in this pre-gulp, thin braided lines, little stretch, can drop light line, deep water. But I to your point, I know you and I have talked about this offline. I do think it would still work, but I think it's harder.
Yeah. Well, we can test it out this year. I'm going to take you up on the offer you made. We got any more questions? Feel free, comments. Make a post up here in the chat, and we will answer it. Yeah.
By the way, JT, there's another really cool video out there. I'll find it and send it to you from about 20 or 22, 23 years ago. There used to be a weekly fishing show, Northeast fishing show called Northeast Angling, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. It was with two captains. I forget their names now. Man, I love that show. I watched that. And they once did a Fluke episode in Peconic Bay, my home waters, back when the Fluke were in thick in the spring. And you see how many boats are fishing and the amount of Fluke they're bringing up. It's
Wow.
amazing. I'll have to find it. So I'll have to Google and find it and
Find it and
share
send
it
it to
with
me.
you. But it'll give you an idea of what Peconic Bay. I know you fished it a few times. What Peconic Bay used to be like in the spring for Fluke. It really was the mecca for Fluke in the spring.
Well, that'd be great if we could find that video. We could do another watch party. I've got we got a new comment here.
Did Mike Hunter 13 said, did his friend Poise C make a video? I don't know what that means.
I know there was another video. There was a TV show that somebody had. It was from like the early 90s. Somebody had posted up on YouTube where they were fluke fishing below the Whitestone Bridge.
Okay. Philly Man Pete has an interesting comment.
Yeah,
I'd like to
there we
see a
go.
YouTube episode where you go on a fluke trophy hunt using Nappy's bait strategy. That would be cool. It would be cool. You know what? It would be awesome. I might do this on my boat next year when I have Skinner on board on a trip, maybe when I don't have a charter and we can just fluke fish for fun, where Skinner will only use his tried and true method and I will only use. Now, to be fair, I used to use bucktails from years and years before I even heard of Skinner. 25 plus years ago, I was on the Nancy Ann, a very well known, probably the best versed captain, Richie Jensen on the Nancy Ann. The guy is like knows fishing, saltwater fishing, and the waters by where I fish like the back of his hand. I was on his boat for a fluke trip, and I was using high lows. We were all using squid and spearing, and I broke off at one point. I was doing okay, and I opened my tackle box, and the mate came over to help me, and he's like, "Oh, you want me to tie you up?" I'm like, "I'm gonna just put another rig on." I had the ready-made high-low rigs. And he saw that I had a bunch of bucktails that I would use for striper fishing in my box. He goes, "Hey, you ever thought of using a bucktail?" I said, "For fluke?" I was like, "Are you crazy?" It's like, "Let me tie you a rig." And he tied a dropper a foot above the bucktail, and we put it just a bare hook. And I never went back to high lows after that day. It was amazing how the catch upped when I started doing that. So I would still use a bucktail and teaser, but it might be a fun experiment if I bought squid and spearing and did it the old way and compared to, what he does with the, and it's not going to be big baits. I'll leave that for you, JT.
We're going to be doing some a big bait fishing for fluke on next drift this year. We're going to get away from the, we've got so many gulp and bucktail videos. We want to do something different. And it's been something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And we're going to attempt to do it out where I think potentially a world record lives.
Yeah.
That'll be a great series of videos we're coming up with this year. So this question here, how often, if at all, are you fishing with 8-inch gulp? I've tried it. I have probably 200 packages of 8-inch gulp in every color. And I don't think I've ever caught a fluke on it.
Same. I've tried it. I've never caught a fluke on it. I've stopped using it. I think the deep water we fish, 6 inches is the magic number. It's crazy how just going a little higher just seems to they don't want to hit it. And much like going lower, you catch all the sea bass and the porgies and all the crapfish. 6 inch seems to be the magic number.
Yeah, I think the 8-inch gulp grub, when you hold the 6 inch and the 8-inch next to each other, the 8-inch gulp grub, the actual body of the grub is much bigger.
It is. It's substantially. It's not just the 2 inches. It's thicker too.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Let's see here.
Was not on fire. Was not on fire. They're lying to you. Not on fire. But I hope we'll see this year. Next comment. I hope you're right.
No. Any more comments, questions? Get them in the chat before we sign off. We'll answer them. We've got a lot of good content coming up.
And I actually just put up a video today, if anybody is interested, with a really good fluke trip from last summer. One of the very few really good trips we had last year. And I can't wait. We're a couple months away.
I know. I'm so ready. I spent some time down at the boat yesterday.
But yeah. All right. I think that's it, JT.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll come up with another video. John, see if you can find that video. I have another one I want to show.
Look for it now and reply to the invite video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal.
All right, guys.
All right,
Take it
everybody.
easy.
Thanks for watching.
Stay warm.